Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Once again, Hector Aguilar and Ben, your agent with Aguilar Realty Group,
Hey
brokered by
everyone.
Realty. And today, actually, Ben is joining us from a secret location. And unfortunately, he has to wear his mask where he's at. But Ben, I'm glad that
Yeah.
you're able to join us. I know that today's training or video was going to be focused on the residential listing agreement, which it is. But I also wanted to focus a little bit more on um, the contingency, right? A contingency that protects a client who wants to either move up or move down. So let's go ahead and get started.
All
Today,
right.
I'm going to share the screen with regards to the residential listing agreement,
Perfect.
and it'll take me a couple seconds here. But if you're in the market to sell, right now is probably the best time to sell because we're in not only a seller's market, but many are referencing it as a super seller's market. So, with that said, it's super. There's a lack of inventory right now, and because of that, there's a big demand for properties, right? So we're starting to see, and we've been seeing over the last 3 or 4 months, that properties are selling for quite a bit more than their market value. um,
Right.
Now, pricing a property, right, Ben, is super important because you don't want to price a property hoping to hit a target that maybe the property is not worth, but you want to price a property according to what the market value is. And why is that?
Correct.
I think it's important because if you price a property correctly from the very onset, you're going to help drive more buyers to the property, and ultimately you're going to have an opportunity to negotiate more offers on your listing. In other words, buyers are smart. They have access to the real estate data through different portals, either Zillow, Redfin, our personal websites, realtor.com, homes.com. So believe me, buyers are out there looking at homes and prices every single day. So when you overprice a property, chances are you're not going to get the traffic you need. And I get it. The goal for the seller is to maximize that gain. But when it comes to pricing, it's absolutely important that we price it accordingly, according to what the market value is. And what we've seen is that properties are selling between 5 or 10% above asking price in this market. How much longer is that going to
True.
last? It's really, really hard to say, right? We've actually, Ben, can you give us a little experience of some of the offers that we're writing for some of our clients without mentioning names because that's private, but we can talk about numbers.
Yeah. Definitely you're right as far as the percentage. What one offer got accepted was at 6%. Actually, two offers that we got accepted was at 6% above asking price. So I mean, they're anywhere from, of course, depending on the city and you're buying, but it's pretty crazy. Like the one in La Puente it was coming at like, how much was it again,
They were
Hector?
asking,
Five
they were on the market for 530, and we
five
went under contract at 560. Now,
560, yeah.
the appraisal actually went out, and I think we talked about this a couple of
In the last
weeks
one,
ago.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I want to say last week's video where the value came in at just 5,000 under our agreed price. But
Let's
case in
see.
point is that that particular property was priced according to the market. We made an offer that was approximately 10% above the asking price, right? Or let's see, in this particular case, maybe not 10%. It might have been like 6 or 7%. We
Six,
got it
about
under contract
six.
at 560, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, we were able to get that property under contract for a client. So what I want to talk about today, though, is also talk a little bit about, the listing agreement as it pertains to selling your home in order to buy, right? So the important thing is that most sellers are really uncomfortable with selling their home and the idea of maybe being homeless, where they're going to
Yeah.
worry about maybe closing escrow and not having
Right.
a property to purchase, right? So
Exactly.
for those that are either moving up or moving down that are here locally, we have a contingency that's called a seller replacement property contingency. And what does that do for a seller? It basically protects a seller from having to close escrow on his current home before they locate and purchase a second home. And
Mm-hmm.
typically we call that a concurrent purchase or a concurrent transaction. And how it works is, let's say we list Ben's house at a price of, let's say, 750,000, and they want to move down. Well, they don't want to close escrow on that house that they currently own right now because they still have to locate a replacement property. So when we market the property, we first of all let all agents know that the property is actually a contingent sale. So we let them know up front that this particular seller needs to find a property in order to be able to close on the escrow of their current home. Okay, and so we have what's called a seller contingency in place. Now, I'm pulling up that contingency so you see it. And a listing agreement is your basic listing agreement. So I know we opened up the show with reviewing the listing agreement. And the listing agreement is very simple. You determine who the broker is going to be. You determine how much time you're going to give that broker to be able to list the property. You decide on a price that's going to be attractive for the market and be able to gain you as much equity as possible on the sale. You agree on a commission. Now, all commissions are different. There's no standard commission. Our commission structure is as little as 4% through, and up, depending on restrictions and conditions. Those are some of the things that we go over with you on a one-on-one basis to show you the different levels of commission and the different levels of service that we can provide you as a seller. Okay. So with that said, I wanted to show you basically what the seller replacement property contingency looks like. And I'm going to open up the document and kind of show it to you here real quick so that you can understand what this form is about. So let me go ahead and share my screen.
Hector, what is the average people selling their home in our market right now?
Right now, what we're seeing, Ben, is that the average time on market, honestly, that we've been seeing is about no more than 2 weeks. We're starting to see a little bit more inventory hit the market. So we're starting to see those days on market go from 6 to 7 to now to 10 to 11 and 12. What does that mean to the market? It means that there's more options available for buyers. And so that kind of helps the inventory, but there's still a lack of inventory. Once again, a normal market is typically an inventory of homes that is between 3 to 6 months on the market. If it's a buyer's market, it's typically a market that homes are on the market sitting for 6 months or more. Or if it's a seller's market, typically homes are selling between 1 to 3 months. Right now, we're seeing them sell in less than 30 days, on average, less than 2 weeks. So that's why when we say it's a super seller's market, homes are definitely on demand. Okay. So one of the things that I wanted to go over with you as a seller is what's called a seller's purchase of replacement property, as you see it here, right? And so basically what that entails is that it allows us to put your property on the market in order to protect you from being essentially homeless, right? In other words, closing escrow on your current sale of your property and then not having a property to go to. So typically what we do is we, let me go ahead and, this was a sample file, so I'll just delete that real quick. So typically what we want to do is we fill out this form and we let the buyers know once we get an accepted offer, hey, our escrow closing is conditional or contingent on the ability of us finding a replacement property. Now, in this particular form, it's giving us finding a replacement property. It says this agreement is contingent on the seller entering into a contract to acquire a replacement property or identifying a suitable property to move. And it says finding replacement property contingency. Seller shall, and typically it says 17 days, right? In this market, I've actually typed in here 30 days. And why do I do that? And that's because right now in this market, it's incredibly difficult to help a seller. Well, not difficult for any seller, but any buyer to locate a property. So it might take us, instead of 2 to 3 weeks, it might take us 30 days. And what I also do is I inform the buyer's agent that in the event that we can't find something within 30 days, we typically will ask for a one-time extension. So I'll put here in other terms, I'll type in seller reserves a right to a one-time extension, to locate a replacement property. Okay. Now, what does that do? It gives us an additional 30 days, and we're telling the buyer up front that this could be a potential key element to our transaction on the sale of our current client's property. So this is what the SPR does. It protects you as the seller from closing your property and then not finding a replacement property, right? So it's conditional on you finding something. Now, the issue comes up where, let's say you find a replacement property, okay? And I want to talk a little bit about what's called a residential lease after sale, right? So there's two types of residential leases after sale. This one is intended to be 30 days or more, and there's another one that's 30 days or less. So this comes into play in the event that, as a seller, I put my property on the market, we found a buyer for it, and now we've actually found a replacement property, but that particular seller isn't willing to wait for us uh, to close. So what would happen is we would need to close escrow, right, on my current property in order to free up the equity and then buy the next property. Well, in order to do that, the seller on the upside of the property that we're buying may not be ready to vacate his property right away. So that might take an additional 15 days or 30 days for us to be able to get possession. So what this does for us is it gives us an opportunity to tell our buyer on our property, hey, I found a property to purchase. We're currently under contract. We need to close on time so that I can buy my next property, but I may need to lease back the property from you at the very minimum. In this case, it would be 30 days or more. And another occasion, it might just be 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And then we would use the one that says intended for 30 days or less. So the residential lease after sale gives you the opportunity not to have to move twice, right? Not to have to find an apartment to go to or storage all your personal items, your furniture, and all that good stuff at home. But we'll give you an opportunity to stay in the property, close escrow, free up your equity, and then be able to close on your purchase escrow, typically within 7 to 10 business days, right? So within 7 to 10 business days, we close on your purchase property. Those sellers now need a couple days to move out. Now you can say, okay, now I'm going to move into the property. So now it's another week that goes by. And all of a sudden we're at 14, 15, 20 days. And so you can easily see that a residential leaseback is the absolute greatest tool that we can use in order to help a seller sell their property and buy another one. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So yeah. So basically, let me rephrase it just for the people. So basically, if you're concerned about selling your home because you think you're gonna maybe be homeless or whatnot, right?
Mhm.
This contingency will allow you the freedom to stay in your home even after you sell it.
Well,
And
the
yeah,
seller contingency is the seller contingency doesn't allow you to stay in your home. What the seller
at least,
contingency allows you to do is it allows you to negotiate on a property on another property and not close escrow on yours. Okay. So I know there's a two-part to it. There's a seller purchase a replacement property, which is a contingency where you're telling the buyer, hey, I'm going to sell my house, but I'm not going to close until I find a replacement property.
oh, but the other lease back is the one that they're
So the other lease
okay.
back, once we find a property and they're ready to move forward, then we can say, look, we found a property, Mr. Buyer of our house. We're going to need to close on this day, but we're also going to need a lease back, right? So this is information that I typically will disclose in the private remarks of a multiple listing service or where we submit our properties to market. And so buyers agents are aware and they can tell their buyers what to expect in this particular property. So this is a great tool to help someone who's thinking about selling their current home, cashing out, and moving up to a bigger home, or even cashing out and maybe it's time to downsize, right? The kids are gone. You don't need a 4 bedroom, 2 bath, but maybe just you and your wife can use a 2 bedroom, 1 bath. Maybe you want to go into a retirement community, or maybe you want to downsize into a condo or townhome. This is what you use the seller purchase of replacement property as a protective condition of selling your current home. So, in a nutshell, this particular form definitely helps. Go ahead, Ben.
So when they have this form in place and they find another home, right? They're in contract with their new home. When when does the money be released from their current home they're selling?
That's a fantastic question, Ben. The only time that the money is actually released is when that escrow closes for the sale of their purchase of their property. I'm sorry, not their purchase, but their sale of their property. So
Okay.
let's say you put your home on the market, we find a qualified buyer for it, and they say that it's going to take them 35 days to close. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that equity that's tied up in your house doesn't get released by escrow until that escrow closes, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's when that money is released, and that's when the lease or seller to remain in possession disclosure or contract comes into play. Why? because we need escrow to close in order for that equity to be sent to the new purchase escrow. And then we need to keep them in that property for at least 2 to 3 weeks in order to ensure that they make a one-time move and not have to move twice and things of that nature. So the
I
equity
see.
of the sale of their property does not get released until the buyer closes on their sale.
Buyer closes on their sale. So
Correct.
the other side. Okay, so once they sell theirs, this goes almost concurrent, correct? So
Right.
they
What
sell
happens?
their home. Go ahead.
What happens is typically what happens, and I apologize for interrupting, Ben, is let's say the escrow that's managing the sale of the first property, right?
Right.
When the equity is freed, that escrow company will wire all of the proceeds to the purchase escrow of the
Okay.
property they're buying, and then
Okay.
the purchase escrow, when they figure out like their down payment, their closing costs, and all that good stuff, then that purchase escrow will release, a refund to the owners. So for example, let's just say, for example's sake, that the equity that they gained from the sale of their property was $200,000, and
Okay.
they only needed $150,000 to purchase the next property. Well, the
Yeah.
difference, either two things happen: either escrow will only wire the 150,000 to the
Mm-hmm.
new escrow, or they'll
Mm-hmm.
wire everything. And then when the new escrow is finished with their purchase of that transaction,
Uh-huh.
then whatever's left over, escrow will refund our client, the buyer.
Oh, okay.
So that's typically how it works out. Okay.
Okay, cool.
So
Cool.
I
That's
know it's a
awesome.
very interesting topic right now. I know many sellers that are on the fence about selling because they
Yeah.
don't understand the contingency that this particular, or the protection that this contingency provides them. And so I thought that in today's market that they would benefit highly from
Mm-hmm.
wanting to sell their property and protect themselves when it comes to closing on their property. So
Yes.
many sellers, case in point, here's an example. As you know, yesterday we canceled not only a purchase agreement, but we also canceled the listing agreement. Uh,
Right.
we had a client who had done that. We put this property under contract. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we were consistently looking for properties, where we're looking, and we finally got a property under contract that they absolutely adored and loved. And when the lender went to rerun their credit because it had been a couple months, their FICO scores were okay, but they were unable to qualify due to the amount of debts that they were carrying. And so, unfortunately, we had to cancel not only the purchase, but more importantly, they had a seller contingency in place, just like I'm talking about right now. And because of that contingency, we were able to cancel with the buyer of their property, who unfortunately had been waiting for us for about 60, almost 90 days. Uh,
Yeah.
but it allowed them to cancel based on this contingency. So that's the perfect example of how this contingency comes to play, because you want to make sure that your client who's selling his home doesn't end up without a property if we can't locate a property to purchase. So that's a
And
perfect example of how that kind of played out in this particular case. It wasn't good for our purchase client or our seller client, but ultimately, it protected him from having to be without a property. Protected him from having to close on the sale of his property, and not having anywhere to go. So that's the last thing you want to do, and that's why this particular contingency was developed and in place, is to protect those clients that want to sell in order to buy. Does that make sense?
yeah, is there anything else in here that we should know?
Not for the time being. Like I said, your this is part of your listing contract, which is pretty standard. But I wanted to discuss the seller contingency protection, just because I know
Okay.
a lot of sellers that are thinking about selling their home on the market and are worried about not having a home. So
Yeah.
if you're in the market to sell and you're looking to downsize or move up, please reach out to the Aguilar Realty Group. We'd love to help you. We service the Inland Empire and the East San Gabriel Valley, and the greater Los Angeles area. So we're in Southern California. Please reach out to us. You can find us on Google, or you can reach out to us on our website at AguilarRealtyGroup.com. Once again, Hector Aguilar and Ben, your agent, thanks again for your time. And we look forward to hearing from you if you're thinking about either buying or selling a property. You guys have a wonderful week, and we'll be in touch once again next Wednesday. See you soon.
Bye, everyone. Thank you,
Bye,
Hector.
Ben.
All right, brother. Oh, you're still live.